Hello everyone, welcome to my presentation about the impact of isolation on high school age teens during COVID-19. This is the abstract. If you feel free, you can pause the video to read the whole thing. Background: during COVID-19 pandemic, it is important to know that you aren't alone in isolation situations and can ask for help when it's needed. School closure during the summer months is linked to several negative consequences among children, including increased screen time, unhealthy weight gain, and an increase in prevalence of overweight and obesity. Joan et al. This is important because isolation away from your friends, especially high school teens, is the worst thing that can happen since overall they hang around each other, and to see this as a negative effect hurts them. Going through high school is important for social and emotional development, since this is a time where you grow the most. According to a survey by G and Hammond, taken together, student surveys results reveal that students in the social emotional learning schools were studied reported more positive educational experiences, felt more connected to the schools, demonstrated higher levels of psychological and emotional support, engagement, and empowerment. This shows that when students engage in their education, they are more likely to keep going to school instead of dropping out. COVID-19 was the worst thing that happened to everyone in the world, that impacted us in a way that we never saw before. The first confirmed COVID-19 case reported in the U.S. was on January 20, 2020, when a Snohomish County man returned home from Wuhan, China, closed all K-12 private and public schools across the state of Washington from March 17th to Friday, April 24th. COVID-19 closure timeline. Washington to reopen after nearly 15 months. This is important to look back at because this shows that this was a period when everything changed for the entire world, and adapted to new, different, unique decisions and challenges. This will also be a learning experience for the people who went through the entire process of the first COVID case to school shutting down. The reason why I chose this topic is that when I went through COVID-19 3 years ago, it was a horrible experience for me, since I hardly got to experience the fun stuff pre-COVID and after COVID. It was getting boring staying home in the house all day long, and mentally and physically it was not it. Referring back to my information in the background, I think having social and emotional development is important in school, even in Zoom classes during the pandemic, because you are still learning things that can be very useful during COVID or even in the future, which could be helpful looking back at COVID and what it did to us. I think isolation was a huge part of my struggle with COVID, because to begin with, I'm not that social, or not even try to have conversations with other people, because they would think I am weird. COVID-19 also impacted my freshman year, because especially because that was my last time I was in school before COVID-19. Why should it matter to you guys? My freshman year was sad and took valuable time away from me, which I could use for bigger and better things. This age of time is valuable. The afternoon gatherings with my friends, the basketball games, fun extracurricular activities, and spending time with coaches and other staff around the school. Referring back to my information in the background slides, I think when we could experience those fun moments, those missed opportunities pre-COVID led to negative consequences like depression, weight gain, mental health, and diseases and disorders. High school is important to students and social emotional development, because it can lead to very bad problems in school and out of school if you don't look at it early. According to American Academy of Pediatrics, as of June 2021, over 140,000 children in the United States had lost a parent, grandparent, or caregiver to death from COVID-19. Many other kids watched relatives battle the virus, Why social and emotional learning is important now. This shows that what you're going through at home can impact your social and emotional development at school, since you might not move on. Since something that is so tragic, you don't think right about yourself and will skip school and may not have the motivation to go to high school. If you do have problems at home, social and emotional help will be important at high school because it can help you with problems that you're going through. When you have no contact with the outside world except for the people in your family, this is called isolation, which is important for you to build your confidence with people and yourself so that you don't have mental health problems just because you have no one to talk to. Research shows that adolescents depend on their friendships to maintain a sense of self-worth and manage anxiety and depression. A recent study of 3,300 high school students found that nearly one-third reported feeling unhappy or depressed in the recent months. Goldberg. This shows that isolation affects friend groups because isolation forces you to stay inside because of the unforeseen circumstances that happen with COVID. If 3,300 high school students are feeling sad or unhappy for months, it is also more likely that they will end up at mental health offices to get them checked up so they won't do any harm to themselves since they can't get help themselves. In every situation, there is always going to be pros and cons, but especially having pros and cons during school closures during COVID-19 is a huge opportunity to improve yourself or struggle with the situation at hand. Many schools and universities are opting to continue their normal classes on online platforms. What is the impact of coronavirus on education? It shows that the pros of COVID-19 during school closures are that students who struggle or tend to not like in-person instruction should like this because you might have access to online resources that weren't available for you for in-person instructions. Anytime there's a situation like this, especially when you have to stay at home for a long period of time, you're going to be disadvantaged. Young children need the assistance of in-person instruction. They may find it difficult to concentrate in a typical frontal class conducted on a computer. What is the impact of coronavirus on the education? The cons of COVID-19 learning are that there could be students who are the opposite of liking online learning. Instead, they thrive off of in-person learning because they may need the help, especially students who are special needs students, and they may not have disruptions. They may have disruptions around their surroundings. Another reason students may not like it that you sit on your laptop for a couple hours. Sitting down for hours may hurt you since it isn't good to sit down for long. Another con could be that each class may be long depending on what you're learning. In my review section, I agree with the parts where it says that high school can lead to bad problems, including when you have no contact with the outside world during COVID-19. And having no friends during that period can make you very lonely. Being lonely can lead to other problems like depression, anxiety, and mental health illnesses. And if you have a tragic event that happened during COVID-19, that may that may make you lose motivation with school to cope with what happened. This is why this is so important for me because what I went through was important to learn what I do well and what I struggle with. And the things I struggle with is time management. And the topic should be important because I'm telling you personal things which I went through and how I coped with good and bad things. I agree with the first two topics because that's what exactly I can relate to, and the things the articles say I can imagine myself going through since I struggle a lot. I don't have anything to disagree with because I respect everyone's perspective of how they dealt with COVID. Next two lit review slides are talking about the pros and cons of school closures during COVID-19. I went through different pros and cons, and others went through other pros and cons that aren't the same as other people, which is fine because you have to respect any problem that other people have, even though it may be small. You should care about this because it's good to hear other people's perspectives on how they did things during the pandemic and what they do to cope. I agree with the agree. I also agree with the experts. They say the pros are continuing virtual classes since they at least provide education, and cons. It might be hard to concentrate on Zoom classes. There isn't anything that I can disagree with because all the information on the slide relates to me and it makes sense to understand. What could be next in the future is to give the students tips, advice, and help on what they can do to not feel lonely. Limit social media and do something active. Set up a book club or something which requires active participation. Friendship requires effort and vulnerability to grow and maintain. Show acts of kindness. Be fair and loyal. Try to engage more. Create a online Create a check-in online with a pod of 3 or 4 friends who are good for you. Hall. This shows that what's being done is helping students who struggle with isolation of COVID-19 and trying to give good advice on how to control themselves and how to use their time wisely during quarantine. I think I think what could still be done is having a charity that can send money to help out on products that will help and support students that genuinely need it, or have a place where you can donate items that will help out students. All in all, I want you to take away from this is it is okay for you to ask help when you need it, especially when you're isolated in the COVID-19 pandemic for months to a year. Not everyone is going to be good and healthy in a pandemic where you stay in one setting for a long time. It could become mentally exhausting. What you, the reader, can do is help out people and give them advice on how they can improve their mental health while in that situation for a long time.